Okay, welcome back. We just finished talking about how static fields can be used like an auto number. And in our particular case, the auto number was just this variable called ID. I didn't bother with the PFV convention. I could have. But I knew darn well I wasn't going to be setting it, so there wasn't going to be any issues. So I just kind of cheated there. On page 500, they talk about passing objects as arguments. Now, we've done this before. We've passed, like back in the rectangle day, we passed things to other, other methods. The issue here is that you got to make sure when you pass a reference to another object, to make sure that we don't see. Remember now, if I have like two variable names, I have a sending variable name as a parameter and a receiving variable name as an argument. Actually, it's the other way around, but you get the point. That both these variables are pointing to the same thing. So if I was to change something in one, it would change in the other. And a lot of time, that's not what you want. That could get into some sticky issues. And so the way you fix this is you build what's called a copy constructor. So when you pass a object to another guy, instead of just copying the thing over directly, you copy all the data over. Now we've done this in rectangle. So let me go back to rectangle again. And up here towards the top, we actually have, this is the normal, okay, let me just start. So here's the default constructor, where I just pick two variables, two values. Here is where you give me the variables, but I wash them through. Remember, you have to wash them through the properties. Okay, and here's what's called a copy constructor, where I'm passing it an existing rectangle. Now, I don't just say, oh, this rectangle is equal to that rectangle. No. I mean, you could. But this allows me to go in there and say, okay, I want to pull the link from that and make that the length of mine. So it's only the data, right? Who cares about the methods? It's only the data that I'm trying to recover. So I'll recover all the data and put it in there. Cool? All right. Good. So that's how this is done. It's done with a copy constructor. Sometimes there'll be a copy method put in here that basically just does the same thing, except you don't have to use a constructor. You just have a method called copy. Okay, sometimes that's like that. Okay, on page 503, they talk about returning objects. Well, okay, let's say I have something that returns a rectangle, all right? Well, it'd be the exact same thing. What you would probably do in your return statement is you would say, well, can I... okay, I'm going to go ahead and just put something in here. It's just going to be kind of dumb, but just bear with me. So I'm just going to say public rectangle... I'm just, I don't know, I'm just going to call it junk, because I got no idea what the heck this thing is. So this thing returns a rectangle. And so I want to return the current rectangle, whatever the current one is, but I want to make a copy first, right? So what you would do is you would do something like we've always done, where I'd say, rectangle answer is equal to new rectangle, and then I would give it my data, PFV link, the current thing that I have, PFV width, like that. That'll create me a copy, and then I'll return the copy. Okay, so this allows me to make a copy of something to be able to return it, and it's the exact same thing we're talking about here. Is all I want to do is just grab the data part, because I don't want to have, when I return something, I don't want to have a link back to it, so that if I change something over here, it automatically changes over here. That's a little spooky. And the whole concept of why we're doing this, rather than just mechanically, here's what you do, let's talk about the why. The why is, this is considered a security violation, or could cause a security violation. So it's never a good idea to write applications where you create a link to an object unless you fully intended it to do that. Most of the time, that's not the case. Clearly, most of the time, you really just want another one that looks just like it. You don't want to have to share the same one over again. Okay, The next thing you want to talk about on page 505 is the toString method. So right now, without having to do anything at all, I'm going to go here to my Chapter 8 guy, and I'm going to ask it to do a toString on one of those guys. It doesn't really matter which one. So print ln, and I'm going to say, in fact, why don't I just say imp1 dot toString, just like this. Okay, and let's see what it does. Okay, so the way it works is it gives me the full path to the thing. So this is Chapter 8 dot employee, and then a little @ sign, and then a hexadecimal version of what's called a hash code. Okay, and the hash code is designed to make sure that when I'm comparing like two instances, are they really the same instance, kind of a thing. But that's pretty ugly, right? So we can do better. So I'm going to go to the employee class, and we're going to make our own toString. So I'm going to go down to here, and I'm going to say public. It returns a string, toString, and then we're going to have it do our own, okay? And I'm going to make it pretty fancy. So remember how we had that composite formatting thing with printf, okay? Well, I don't want to display it on the screen here. I just want to make it into a string, so there's a cool thing you can use. So let me just get started here. So I'm going to do string answer is equal to, then I'm going to say string.format. And format is just a way that you can do this thing. This is the same thing as if you'd said printf, okay? It's just, instead of printing it to the screen, it's just going to format the string for me. And so I'm going to go in here and say something like imp id equals, this would be %d, comma, first name equals %s. Remember how all that stuff works? And so this is going to be what the current imp ID is, pfv imp ID, and pfv first name. Okay, so I've made my own toString method, which is going to look a heck of a lot better than that guy. Let's run this. So it's very handy to have a toString method that spits out something that's meaningful, because the default of the full path, the @ sign, and a hexadecimal version of some hash code is not very useful. This tells me everything I want to know. It gives me all the data. It shows me all the data that's in there. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Now, there's a warning here, and quite frankly, we can't deal with that until we get to Chapter 10. So I'm just gonna close my eyes and pretend like I don't see that, and move on. There's a thing called overriding that we're gonna learn in Chapter 10, and since we're not there yet, I'm just gonna ignore it. Say, yeah, okay, whatever, dude, fine, we're cool. All right. Now, the same thing with toString is the way to compare two employees. What if I wanted to have a way? It's very common. You know, I have an employee and an employee. I want to see if they're the same thing. What that really implies is, do they have the same data, right? That's what I want to know. Do they have the same data? So let's go ahead and create us an equals guy. Okay, so to test to see if two instances of the same class are the same, the equal, I need to check to see if their data is the same, because they're both made out of the same cookie cutter. That means the rest of their parts are always going to be identical. So the only thing that changes is what data is stored in the class. And how do we store data in a class? Well, those private field variables. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to check to see if the data inside the class matches. Okay, so let's begin. So I'm going to do a public boolean equals, and I have to pass to this guy another instance to compare against, right? I'm comparing my instance against some other instance. So it's going to be employee imp. And you know how I always do this, right? It's going to be boolean answer is equal to false. And then I'm going to go ahead and just do a return answer to make the red squiggly go away. And then fill in the blank, so to speak. So this is going to be an if statement to see if the data is the same. The first one is easy. If PFV imp ID is equal to the other guy's imp ID. So that would be get imp ID. And then I'll keep going. And if PFV first name is equal to the other guy's first name, which would be imp dot get first name. And if I've counted my parentheses correctly. Okay, so if those two conditions are the same, then we are talking about the same, it is the same data. So I'm going to say answer is equal to true. And there we go. Remember now, we can't do, just as a reminder, we can't say, is this current thing equal to, right? That doesn't work. Just because you can't compare objects. You can't go here and say something like, I can't say if imp1 equals imp2. That just doesn't work, okay? You'll get a yellow guy here saying, what on earth are you doing? At least you should have got a yellow guy. Oops. Oh, come on. I was definitely expecting to get a yellow guy there saying, that ain't right. Okay, whatever, dude. Let's move on. All right. So, methods that create that have other objects. On page 512, a method that copies itself. So we already have a built-in copy constructor for our rectangle guy, right? Cool. So we kind of already did this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in another object to be able to talk about this next thing called aggregation. So I actually have already built up another class called department. And one of the cool things you can do is you can just drag and drop these guys on here. I'm going to hold the control key down so it makes a copy of this. And though, the only thing I have to do is just change the package. Chapter 8. Okay, so, in fact, let me go ahead and compile this guy because I don't know why. Just make sure it's working. Yikes! Oh man, there's a lot of things wrong with this guy. Oh, that's because I haven't finished yet. Okay, that's fine. Never mind. So on page 515, they talk about a term called aggregation. And this is really not a complex topic. What we're talking about is that a class can have a property that's also a class. That's it. I mean, if we go to our employee guy, and I have two PFVs here. Actually, I have three, but I just didn't call them that. So let's just create another PFV here. And I'm going to say private department. And I'm going to call this PFV dept. Okay? There's nothing complicated about that, is there? Right? It's just, instead of having a string or an integer, I just have now this thing called a department. Okay, cool. So let's do a getter and a setter to make sure this thing works. So here we go. I'm going to do public void set department. I guess I'll spell all the way out. And this would be dep. And then whatever this guy is, it's just going to be PFV dep is equal to dep. This is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.